Thank you. Please be seated. Prefect joke of the day is, what did the cross-eyed teacher say to the headmaster? I can't control my pupils.
Well done. I can't control my pupils. Good. Yeah. Well done, eh? So, welcome to chapel on this fine January morning. Doesn't it feel like January? Yeah. But you know what? It's a nice contrast to the glorious weather we were enjoying 2 weeks ago. We were basking in the sun and just reflecting on how beautiful it was. And that's as it should be, because life is all about contrast. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you this morning about. I'm going to just be fairly brief this morning, because there's nothing better than getting out of chapel in time to get that sort of bonus cup of coffee or that bonus hot chocolate or cup of tea or something. So that's my aim, is to get you out here in time that you can get warmed up. But just a couple of thoughts before I do that. And as I've said to you before, one of the challenges you have when you're at my stage in life and in career is that you've got so much that you really want to talk about or impart or focus on or repeat, and you have this dread of repeating yourself, but you do. It's just inevitable. You've got so much, and then you spend literally hours trying to figure out what not to say rather than what to say. So this morning, I want to touch on a couple of things that I think are important. And contrast is one of them. Choices is another one, but choices in a positive way. I think that the whole contrast thing, we forget about its importance to life, right? Because without contrast, we don't actually enjoy some of the good things quite so much. Just think of that sleep that you have when you're really tired, like I won't say you've pulled an all-nighter, because you're not supposed to pull all-nighters. You save that for university. But you've really cut down on your sleep. You've had a really tough workout, tough game, whatever. And you finally crawl into bed exhausted, and you just have such a good sleep because of that, right? So that and so many other contrasts are really important to intensifying, what I would call intensifying the good moments of life. And again, sometimes you need the dismal news as a contrast and a counterbalance to all the good stuff that we want to focus on and that we want to savor and enjoy. I switched on the news. It was a mistake. I was up early this morning. I switched on the news at 6 o'clock, and I switched it off after 5 minutes. I literally switched it off because I thought, this is just so depressing. This is so potentially depressing. And you could criticize me for that. You could say, well, yeah, but that's real life, Mr. Robertson. Well, it is real life. I know that, and we have to be aware of it. We have to do what we can in our own little ways to try to help in some ways, or to try to not have the attitude that's causing the problem. Whatever we can do, we have a responsibility. For sure we do. But you can't help but be dragged down when you just hear item after item on the news that just is it's so soul destroying, really. You think, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better life, and so on. But don't dwell there a lot. That's what I do. You have to rise above that, right? So no sooner had I switched it off than I was talking to myself, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute about talking to yourselves. There's nothing wrong with talking to yourselves, actually. You should do it. I recommend it. Try not to do it loudly, because then people worry about you. But if you do it quietly, inwardly, that's an essential part of coping with life. So I started talking to myself about rising above, right? And I get to these almost mantras that you've heard me talking about before that become so important, like being the light, because darkness can't expel or counter darkness. It's only light that can counter darkness. So, in a metaphorical sense, we all have a responsibility to provide the light, to be part of the light. So that's what I'm advocating for you this morning. Be the light and rise above. If I talk about those little voices that go on inside you, it's almost like conflict. I think you could all identify with that. Can you identify with that conflict where the little negative voice is saying, no, you can't do that, you're not very good at that, and that positive voice is trying to counter it and say, yeah, you are, yeah, of course you can, right? If you really want to, you can. If you work hard, you can. So deal with that conflict. Conflict is inevitable in some ways, and that's one conflict that you will face throughout life, whether you're just about to go on to perform on the stage and you get that sudden fear that, oh, I can't remember my lines, there's no way I can do this, I want to stop. Or there's that little voice that says, you can do this, you're ready, you can do this. Like exams, it's like games, it's like, it's just all through life, you're going to get that. When you shape up to sink that 5-foot putt to win the Masters, there's a little voice saying, you're going to miss this. No, you aren't lined up the way you usually line up. You're going to miss it. And then there's hopefully that little voice that says, no, take a breath. You've done this. You're ready. And you sink the putt. So there's nothing. Win those simple battles is what I'm advocating. As you go away this morning, and I promise I'll keep to my word. As you go away this morning, I want you to think in terms of those simple battles. Win as many of those simple battles as you can. Those battles with the two voices, the negative, the positive voices in your head. And one way of doing that is what you do sometimes in a sporting analogy and contest, is you focus on the 2 minutes that are coming up. So, before the game and the team talk and everything, or in the days leading up to it, you're focused on the championship or you're focused on the win or something like that. Now you focus on the 2 minutes that are right in front of you. What am I going to do in the next 2 minutes that's going to make a difference? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, doesn't matter. Short piece of time. What am I going to do that's going to make the difference? So focus on those 2 minutes, because that's the perfect way of being present, of being right there in the moment. And being present right there in the moment is a hugely important part, as you've heard us say many times in this chapel, of coping well with life. In the moment is, in contrast with what we are going to be focusing on this week, because we're going to be focusing on remembrance, on honoring all the sacrifices that have been made in order for us to enjoy the world that we enjoy. Very important service this coming up, and a very important, in a way, week of observation for us as a community. So remembrance is that focus for the week. Now, Mr. Manson Blair has a really valid and interesting project going on that he's emailed you all about. I hope there's going to be a real big pickup in terms of participation for that, because it's a perfect connection with the larger notions that the remembrance is all about, and actually connecting your past and somewhere in your family's past with those conflicts and those sacrifices, and actually doing it in a very tangible and powerful way. So get behind that project if you're not in that already. I think it's a Google Doc. It's a Google Doc? It's a Google Doc, Mr. MB? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to finish this morning by singing one of the hymns that we sing at our Remembrance Day service. Just before you reach for your books, thank you. Wait till I finish my little preamble. So, one of the hymns we sing, and this, in some ways, I want us to think of this as prepping for Remembrance Day, but also, in a sense, honoring some of the victims of these recent atrocities that have taken place out there in the world. Okay? So, the hymn we're going to sing this morning is Abide With Me. Thank you. What number is it, Jim? Number. Does anybody know the number? Thank you. Okay, so nines, don't abide with me. Go and abide with Mrs. Hamilton. Hurry up. Or the nines that are in her trip. That's why I don't like things happening during chapel. Okay, here we go. Sit down, please. Beautiful hymn, that. If you want to appreciate the words of that hymn properly, ask the chaplain if you can borrow a hymn book. He's always willing for you to do that. at any time, not just for that hymn, but some of the other hymns we sing, the words are pretty special, and it's also a way of learning them off by heart, which is a little thing that I like to see you try and do. So there we are. I hope you remember at least one or two of the things that I've said this morning as you go out there to be there in the moment and get your bonus hot drink. Last thing I want to do, though, before I go, is give a little shout out to the Bantam hockey team. The boys all the way to Chicago did exceptionally well, came third with a 5-2 record against some really good teams, and are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed despite all their efforts and their travel. So a little round of applause for our Bantam hockey team, please. Does anybody actually say that anymore? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? Is that a squirrel? Anyway, well done, squirrels. Thank you.